doesn't seem to want to be playing nice tonight with Restream. We really don't know what's going on there, but we're going to continue on, and I'm just going to kind of work our way through all of the angst and all of the stuff that we have going on. This evening, there's no way to really put our guest into any kind of category this evening because he's way out there. He has no hardware line, he has no liquid line, he doesn't work in a shop, he doesn't own a shop, he has no ties to the vaping industry at all, and yet he is such a fierce advocate of vaping, it's not even funny. I mean, this guy has stuff that's going on, and he's dug up more dirt and more information than a lot of people that I know. And I just sit here and on. It's one of the reasons that I wanted him on the show this evening was just to turn around and say, "Hey, folks, check this out. Did you know?" So, if you would, please help me welcome Mr. Alan Davis. Alan, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. As soon as I get everything all mixed around and all jumbled and all happy, I know that it'll be a much better kind of the evening. Oh, there we go. YouTube's running about 35, 40 seconds behind. Perfectly fine. Already got some people here that are lining up in tonight's chat on the Facebook. For the people in YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, please understand there seems to be a serious lag that is going on, possibly up to 40 seconds. So if you're typing anything into YouTube or you're watching, give me a few minutes and we're going along. Alan, we are all over the place. Oh, and before I even begin that, folks, the phone line is open. If you want to call in and talk with Alan, ask him questions. The number is 215 383 5752. When you hear the English lady, say press 1, and that'll bring it up on the laptop that I have over here, and it will allow me to know that you are in the queue and waiting to talk to us. Dude, you and I have a lot to talk about this evening. And it's funny because I say that we conversed for about 20 minutes before the show even started, and I've written so many things down that it's one of these things that you just never know where to start. So I'm going to start with something that kind of hit some of the headlines and a little bit of the news, and then we're going to get into some of the other stuff. Let's talk for a minute about the stuff that has been going on recently, or more recently, in the hardware side. And we're talking about Purge Mods, and we're talking about another company, and whether they're Authentic USA and things like that. You physically toured Purge.
I did.
And you can hands down say Purge is a USA manufactured product.
So, actually, exactly a year ago, Clezo approached the Legion and said, hey, I want you guys to come, tour our facility. It was him and actually a couple of other manufacturers that did so. So, my name came up, and for transparency's sake, Matt Clezo did pay for the plane ticket. So he flew me down to Orlando, Florida, where, I attempted to do my best at live streaming every single thing so that nobody could have any questions or doubts or concerns. I can tell you without a doubt, at least a year ago, those products were made 100% right there in that machine shop that I was walking around in. I seen, RDAs. I seen the new Slam piece was just getting ready to come out, and so they were manufacturing the Slam piece while I was there. Um, it's American made. Part of the conversation that Matt and I had was, he told me about the upcoming pod that he was coming out with, and potential of a tank that he was thinking about doing. And he said then both of those are going to be made in China. That there's no real cost effective way to make those two products in America. But for his tube mods and his RDAs, those were definitely made right there in Orlando, Florida.
And that's what a lot of people needed to hear and needed to see.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let's settle this once and for all. Oh,
So the thing is too, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we kind of need to discuss why that's important. Why does anyone care where a product is made? And from my standpoint, I could give two rats asses. Whether you make your product in China, Canada, on the moon, in America, whatever, I don't care. If you make a quality product, that's all that matters. Okay. But where I do draw a line is when a manufacturer is blatantly lying to his consumers. Okay. If you make a tube mod in the United States, that tube mod is going to fetch a more expensive price than a tube mod that's made in China. It's just the way it is. Okay. Anything that you buy in China is normally considered cheaper, whether that's the truth or not. It's considered that way. Okay. So if you've got a product that on your box it says made in China and another product right beside of it, they could be identical, and it says made in America, the one that says made in America is going to sell for more expensive price. Okay?
right. If it's got a tag on it that says "Made in America," by God, it better be made in America.
You're exactly right. So if you're a manufacturer and you're telling people that your product is made in America, but in actuality it's made in China, and you're still selling those products for American made prices, you're not only taking advantage of the consumer, okay, but you're also having an unfair competition advantage over your competitors. You're making a higher profit margin than the competitors are. Okay. And the sad thing is a lot of times these, it's not all the time. So please don't, string me up to the cross. But a lot of times these American manufacturers are the ones who are putting money into the fight. So and you're taking advantage of that, and you're making a higher profit percentage than those guys who are trying to do it the right way. It's disgusting in my opinion.
How many times, more than you could probably count, the people that are trying to do things the right way get screwed, shafted, shit on. It perturbs me to no end. All the
That's the reason why that I do what I do. It's frustrating for me.
it
You
is.
know, like you said, I'm just a consumer. I literally make nothing from this industry. I don't accept free stuff from people. People offer me free stuff. Occasionally I've been given gifts or whatever. But either way, I'm not paid by this industry.
Nope.
You know,
And
it,
that's what got me because I've been looking through your feed and I've been watching your videos and paying attention, and I'm like, here's a guy that's going at it hardcore. You say, and you jokingly say, Mark safe from the Clintons today, and yet there's some things that are happening around you that not quite so polite.
yeah,
And
yeah. So a weird thing is I received a package the other
that's what
day.
I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, I've kind of I've went, it was addressed to me. I don't have any family, with the exception of my wife and my children. So I wouldn't have anyone who would send me anything. So it would have had to, and I don't really have friends. So it would have had to have been someone in the vape industry. Okay. But someone sent me a box of cookies, a very expensive box of cookies. And, I don't even eat cookies, you know, but either way, someone sent me a very expensive box of cookies with absolutely no notes, no return address. I called the place where the cookies came from, and they weren't able to tell me anything either. They said it, to their system, it looked like I ordered those myself.
No shit.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, it kind of looked like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being conspiracy theorist or whatever, but it kind of looked like someone was trying to send me a message that they wanted to tell me they know where I'm at,
And
which is,
I'd have
I
to
mean,
agree
fine.
with you
Yeah.
because some of the things that you're digging out and some of the things that you're doing, it's not a far leap of the imagination to say, hey, you pissed somebody off
Yeah.
or a lot of somebody's really. Uh, Dude, I don't know if you've been looking at the chat. Sherwin loves the hell out of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. He's the one that said, because I asked him, I said, Sean, did you send me some cookies, damn it? And he said, you don't need any more damn cookies. So,
It's good to see everybody in the chat room. I appreciate you showing up and the people that are over in the chat in YouTube as well. Because I see Costello. And guys, I apologize. I was busy setting things up, and I did not put a YouTube notification out to say, hey, come watch the show, like 4 or 5 hours ago. It did not cross my mind. There was something that you have been doing that really caught my attention, and this was more recent than anything. You have put out Freedom for Information Act for the FDA, correct?
I did. I've sent a Freedom of Information Act, and I'm keeping it a secret on what I'm actually looking for. Okay, so but I have received some responses, and then I've went back to them, and I've actually, as of yesterday, as a matter of fact, I've maxed out because they charge for this, they charge for the research and so forth. I've maxed out that budget, so I'll be paying, out of my own pocket to continue that budget a little further. I think I'm on to something, and I think if I can get the memos and the internal documents and so forth, I have a feeling that I'll be able to put the pieces together to prove the whole picture. And part of that picture, and I can discuss this now, and it may be on your notes already, but part of that picture is, I think that, little backstory, Scott Gottlieb was the commissioner of the FDA. He did some very strange things as commissioner. For example, he's responsible for removing the black box warnings off of Chantix. Okay, which, by the way, in case you guys didn't know, you've seen the news stories about the 125 people who have had seizures because of vaping, supposedly. Well, there's like thousands that had seizures because of Chantix. Okay, but the FDA chose to remove that black box warning from Chantix. But anyway, Chantix is made by Pfizer. Scott Gottlieb, who was the commissioner of the FDA, now works for Pfizer. Okay, couple of things. So last year, Altria, Blue, Juul, all met with Scott Gottlieb at the FDA. Okay, after that was over and said and done with that meeting, Scott Gottlieb, did a press release where he said, I think we really accomplished something here today. About a month later, Juul announces that they have sold 32% non-controlling interest to Altria. Okay, well, Gottlieb sends out a letter to both Altria and Juul, and if you read the writing in the letter, he's extremely angry. If you just read the way it's written, this isn't someone who's upset. This is someone who is mad. Okay, mm-hmm. I think, and then this is just a theory, but I think that Scott Gottlieb gave Juul a pharmaceutical out. Okay, and told them that basically, hey, sell your products behind the counter in pharmacies, and you'll get through the PMTA process or whatever. And then once Juul sold, that their parts to Altria, that was no longer going to happen at that point.
Right.
You also notice too, it's around this same time that Gottlieb started making the separation between pod systems and open source systems. Before that, he never discussed those things. Okay, so when you put all these pieces kind of together, and that's how conspiracy theories work. But the truth of the matter is, what else do we have to go off of? When you start putting all these pieces together, you start seeing the whole picture. The fact that Gottlieb now works for Pfizer. Okay, the fact that Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline joined their consumer products divisions. Okay, so now they're one company. So all the smoking cessation devices and gums and all that stuff are now under one umbrella. Okay, Juul was that one. Okay, and I think the pharmaceutical companies would love to have had Juul, when Juul first came out. A lot of that's also the reason why I have such a hard time, saying fuck Juul.
Yeah.
I think they've been kind of backed into a corner where, they do what they have to do to survive.
And Juul everybody discusses it, and it's a polarizing kind of thing. People are either on the fence, or they love it, or they hate it. Those are the only three, and it's either, if they hate it, it's a full stop. If they love it, it's step on the gas, let's do 100. And my wife and my middle daughter and I sat down and had a conversation before the show this evening about Juul. And my middle daughter, Megan, was pissed about something. And, okay, let's talk about it. Now, my wife, Shelley's on the other end of the stick. She looks at Juul and she wants to get rid of them all. And I'm at the end of THR, you know. Are they not smoking? She goes, yeah, but how many people are dual using? And I'm like, okay. How many people are dual using mods and everything? So it's that heated kind of topic, you know. But as you and I mentioned earlier, you say vaping to most of middle America or anybody that really doesn't know, and the first image that is in their mind is Juul.
So why is that?
The only reason why is that is the only picture or threads or crap that are shown on all the major news and the ANTZ.
So you have to kind of ask yourself, why? Why is Juul got such a target? Okay. When the National Youth Survey came out, and I actually got copies of the actual questions that were asked for the survey. It's posted on my wall. But when the youth survey came out, 2018 was the first time in 7 years that the FDA did not ask name brands for products. Okay, they chose not to ask, what name brand are you using? Okay, the FDA admitted that they basically assumed it was Juul because of Juul's popularity. Okay, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and I've got a lot of really good friends that work in this industry, people that I respect tremendously, but we're divided on this situation. Mm-hmm. And they all tell me the exact same thing. Every one of them that I have talked to has told me the exact same story. I went to such and such school. I talked to the principal. The principal told me we have a Juul problem. Okay. Guess what? This is a Juul. That's a Juul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My tube mod, it's a Juul. My Mad Modder, it's a Juul. If you look at the evidence, okay, and it's real simple. You just go to Google and type in school confiscates Juul, hit the images button, and look at the pictures. It's pretty obvious that the problem is not exactly. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The problem is not 100% Juul. Is Juul a problem? Yeah. But all vaping is a problem. Okay. Right now, a lot of you guys should be thanking Juul because the pressure has come off of you, to clean up your act, to take the cartoons off your labels and quit pretending like you're a damn, little club or whatever, and clean up your act. They've taken the pressure off of you, But at the end of the day, if Juul wasn't here, we would still be in the same damn boat we're in now.
Yeah.
Okay? There's new news reports out of Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin of kids. I think it's like up to 27 kids now who have severe lung damage from vaping.
Let's talk about that for a second.
That's the headline. They have severe lung damage from vaping.
Yes.
Okay? And you read these articles, and in these articles, they're talking about Juul. Juul had nothing to do with it. They got a hold of some bad, dank THC cartomizers off the street. Okay, that had pesticides or whatever else in them, and those products are already illegal anyway. But all you got to do is go on Twitter or just Google vaping right now, or just turn on the news. Everything is about, oh my God, look at these kids. They've got severe lung damage. And Juul is the number one popular. That's exactly what the how it goes every single time.
And all they're doing is construing something that the public can recognize. Here's a product you'll recognize. It's not a space shuttle. It's not. Here's a Juul. You've heard about it. So here, look at this. While I tell you, this guy over here, it has lung issues now, and has problems. because of what they were vaping. Okay, but and as you said, they did not bother to turn around and say, "Hey, these kids bought a crap product, and they weren't really vaping. They were consuming, if I want to really put it that way, the THC, marijuana, in a product that really should not have been, with a product that they bought, the black market, if you want to put it that way, and it's got pesticide. But the thing being, that kid that had the problem, and I think they called it a bleeb or a blub or something, that gave a lot of issue, and the news didn't bother to tell you, hey, look, this was a pre-existing condition.
So we could talk about that kid too. Those are actually two separate cases. So the kid you're talking about had a collapsed lung.
Yes.
Okay. He claims that he's vaped a jewel pod. One jewel pod would last him 2 or 3 days. Okay. He's got a couple of issues. Number one is, he's tall and slender. Okay. Tall, slender athletes do have a prolonged risk of collapsed lung. Okay. He's an avid scuba diver. Okay. So he was constantly inhaling, his air tanks from scuba diving. Plus, those bleeds that were on his lungs were hereditary issues. Okay. Mm-hmm. One doctor came into the room and said, "You got black spots all over your lungs. Whatever you're smoking must have been really bad." And boom, all of a sudden it was jewel. Nobody ever even attempted to go any further, to look any further. It took people on the internet to look at his chest x-rays and say, "Whoa, wait a minute now. That's not, I'm telling you, this is what it actually is." You know what I'm saying? And they're still sharing it. There are people like Pave, for example. They've been told over and over again, this is false news. This is not real. This didn't happen. And they're still sharing it. So I've started a new thing, Mike, and you're probably not aware of it, but, I've been on Twitter now for about 2 years. And what I've noticed is Twitter seems to be the real battleground. That's where the news is really starting to spread, especially bad news. And so I've started a kind of an initiative, a coalition, you might say. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing is we're just, every time a negative news article is up, we're posting the truth up underneath it. Okay. Are we going to change the person's mind who posted it? No, we're not. Okay. But the 500 people who read that and read those comments, we might have an effect on them. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So one thing that I've noticed is a trend, and it's happened a lot in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There's a trend of young kids with very little followers and so forth who are posting how, "Oh my God, my jewel made me sick. This has happened because of my jewel." There was a girl who posted the other day. She posted up a picture of her. She's completely bald because she went through chemo. And she's talking about, your lungs, you'll have to have a lung transplant just like I did if you continue to vape jewel. Okay. I did a little quick research on her and come to find out 2 years ago she was diagnosed with, how do you say it, cystic fibrosis? It's a lung disease that she was diagnosed with 2 years ago. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a hereditary lung disease. I commented up underneath her article and said, continue to tell people, to fight for people who have lung problems or whatever. But, your hashtags and you're implying that it was jewel that caused this, is very dangerous. She immediately blocked me.
Correct.
It tells me what she was doing was she was trying to get famous off of her issue that had nothing to do with vaping whatsoever. The girl probably doesn't vape.
If I'm correct, that's the one that found out this little bit of, and then just automatically started dumping all this more information, more headline grabbing crap and stuff into Twitter, Instagram, and like you said, trying to become famous.
Right.
Before this incident, they had like less than 50 people that were following, and I want to say like 28. And now there are thousands.
So, yeah, that's not the same one. I'm not sure exactly which one it is that you're talking about. That's not the same one. But anyway, she has eventually since then deleted that post. But how much traction could that have post had given if someone wouldn't have been there and stepped up and said something? We found someone today that just 2 days ago has got a GoFundMe going, okay, trying to raise money because he now has 95% of his lungs have been burned due to vaping. Okay. But yet he's doing a live feed, all right, where he's talking just fine. Okay. He refuses to tell anyone what it was that he was vaping, what kind of device, what it was, whatever. Okay. He works for a media company, you know. So this is what's happening out there, guys. You know, it's no longer we have to fight a battle against big tobacco, or we have to fight against big pharmaceutical, or we have to fight against FDA. We're now fighting against everyone. Everyone. You know what I mean?
And it has become problematic because one person picks it up, and then an aunt's little thing, or some soccer mom picks it up. And for the soccer moms that are honest in doing what they're doing and living life and raising their kids, my apology. I say soccer mom because these are most of the people that are turning around and they hear a piece of bullshit news, and that's exactly what vehemence comes out of their mouth when they're talking to their neighbor, or they're talking to the school, or they don't know their ass from the hole in the ground about vaping, but yet all of a sudden they've become an expert because, well, by God, the news said it was true. It must be true, right?
So about 4 months ago or so, I started going after PAVE, which are the Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes. Okay, and I was surprised to find out that people in this industry, people that you and I both respect, were against me doing that. They were telling me to stop, that I'm wasting my time, that I'm casting negative information about vaping, that these are just bored soccer moms. These bored soccer moms just got a congressional hearing with Juul.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So they're not just bored soccer moms. They're very, very, very well connected, okay, with lots and lots and lots of money.
And I would agree, and that's the problem. They're connected. You were talking about the one that she's doing something, and now the son is testifying in front of Congress and the daughter, and I'm like...
Meredith Beckman is one of the founders of PAVE, okay? So, again, the way that my mind works is I get a little piece of something right here, okay? Well, then I look at that little piece, and then all of a sudden there'll be another little piece right here. And I'll be like, wait a minute, they kind of fit together. And then there'll be another. And all of a sudden you start getting a picture. So Meredith Beckman, who's one of the founders of PAVE, once sued a snack company for $50 million, okay? In that lawsuit, she actually testified that she doesn't want the money. And if she actually wins the lawsuit, she's just going to donate the money to advocacy or something or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants to spread the press so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. Okay. Her daughter, at 14 years old, was raking in six figures running a babysitting service. She now goes to Brown University. Okay. She's been all over the world talking to different forums and different places and things like that, on TV, on the news, and so forth. Now her son is, if you notice, her son was never sworn into that congressional hearing, okay? But all of a sudden, he had an ability to get in front of that mic.
Yep.
So it kind of looks to me like the narrative for her is, hey, it looks awfully damn good on a college application. You know what I'm saying? Her son is also the one who claims absolutely zero proof. Nobody has any proof of this. Claims that Juul came into their school with no other adult supervision, let the kids play with their device, let the kids play with a Juul device, and told them that it's safer than smoking, it's nothing but water vapor, and so forth. I honestly find that hard to believe. First off, I'm a parent. Okay, I have a high school student, a middle school student, and I have one that's 2 years old. I find out that my kids are in a room with another grown adult that hasn't been vetted by the school properly, somebody's going to catch an ass whooping.
Yep.
Instead of worrying about why Juul was there, why aren't you talking to the school and finding out why they just let some random dude come in You know what I mean?
That's
And,
it.
and talking to these kids without any supervision.
I don't. I have a hard time believing that any representative from Juul would ever go and do something like that.
So
Because,
Jewel did have some school programs that they sponsored. Okay, they had some anti-vaping and anti-tobacco programs, and then they also sponsored some sports teams and things like that. Okay, but I don't think it was. I don't believe it was there to advertise a product. I think it was exactly what it was supposed to be. But that story gives them something to get in front of a microphone, in front of cameras, to then put on a college application and say, "Yeah, I testified in front of Congress."
yeah. Speaking of Juul and Ants programs and things like that, you've been evidently doing something that I'm not sure people, if they haven't been paying attention to what you're doing or following your thread, you've been doing something that I found extremely interesting. Tax exempt complaint forms.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
So
And I mean this truly for the people that are either listening, going to listen later. Have you actually filed these things?
I did. I sure did. I said I was going to do it yesterday, and I did it yesterday. And let me explain the reason why. Okay, so you have a right as an American citizen for a nonprofit, in order for them to be able to continue to keep their nonprofit status, you have a right to request and demand that they prove that they are a nonprofit with the IRS. You also have a right to request and demand, and they have to give you any financial records that they have. Okay. Now, the truth of the matter, Mike, is it's probably not going to go very far. Okay. I don't know whether it is or not. My point of that whole thing was to harass these people. Okay. They've been allowed to just be let loose and spread whatever lies that they choose to spread, and nobody is doing anything about it.
Hmm,
Not a single person has done anything about it.
I
Okay.
agree.
So this is something simple we can do. I gave them 3 days to supply me with at least acknowledge that I'm asking for it. You know what I'm saying? I gave them 3 days to supply me with the proof of their nonprofit status and whatever financial records they have available. They completely ignored me. Okay. So I filed a complaint with the IRS. I still need to I'm doing one for New York State, and I'm doing one for California as well, because they've operated in both of those cities. I do know that they're a part of the San Francisco Kids versus Big Tobacco program in San Francisco. Okay, so they've spent money in the city of San Francisco. Okay, so they're required. San Francisco to California will also have them on record as being a potential nonprofit or profit. Okay,
Hmm.
uh, I believe that they're doing this. The work that they're doing is for their own benefit. Okay, I don't know what that's for yet. But that's the complaint that I basically filed. I filed a complaint saying that they refused to provide me with their tax exempt status with the IRS. They refused to comply with the request for the financials, and that I believe that they're operating a nonprofit for own personal gain.
And people need to know that as well, because if somebody is saying this is a nonprofit group, it's if for anybody that is listening, catching this later, let's face it, people are going to make money in a nonprofit group from a salary or from garnering a paycheck, or whether they are something. They're going to make money. Okay, there's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. But when he says not for profit, when they finish the fiscal year, they haven't made cash. They don't have. If they started with X amount, that's what they're going to finish with. The rest of it goes to, organizations, or given away, or donations, or they're not like General Motors. They don't make a profit and hang on to it, or Apple. So when they say nonprofit, they mean nonprofit.
Well, they can actually carry over funds from one year to the other.
As long as
They,
they claim it, correct?
you can, and it's still nonprofit. They still don't have to pay tax on it,
Okay.
but they can. they can keep, money. For example, the Truth Initiative. The Truth Initiative, most of their money goes into investments. Okay, so they invest the money that's donated to them to then turn around and use that investment income to further their campaign.
See, and this is why I love talking to people. I learn
They can't take
something
that money
every
and
night.
go to a
Even
bar.
Nick Orlando in the chat. Nick goes, not true. So I'm not going to piss the Godfather off. If it's not true, then by God, it's not true. But I learn something every time I talk to somebody. When we have a show, I learn new things. That's why I love
Right.
doing this.
That my thing is though, and I caught hell about that too. It's like people shitting on me for for doing that. I'm like, why? I'm doing what I feel is best. I'm doing something, goddamn it.
Yep.
you, you know, too many people are just sitting back and they're fighting over whose mod is better than the next one. I can't do it no more. These people, they're allowed to just run free and just do and say whatever they want to, and they're destroying us. They're absolutely destroying us. And you're going to shit on me because I did something?
See now, and here again, right here in the chat, Nick says they generate money. No one receives a pay. And Sherwin comes in. He goes, nonprofits, especially 501c4, are designed to be non-transparent.
They are a 501c4, okay? But like Shirley and I have actually already had this conversation. They are a 501c4, but there's still certain rights that I have that the IRS gives me, and there's still certain documents. They don't have to. There's certain. I think that Shirley, you'll have to answer the question on what the limit is, but they don't have to disclose a certain dollar amount. Once they reach a certain threshold, they don't have to disclose who that donor is. But that's okay. That's not even what I'm looking for. I kind of really want to see where they're spending their money. You see what I'm saying? Um, and things of that nature. Pave also has a PAC, so that's another thing that I'm looking into too is their PAC. So,
And that's the part. You say, people, I like to watch the things that you're doing simply for the fact that everybody knows the phrase, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. What you're doing happens to be one of those ways. You're just going at it very differently than what you might see mainstream media doing or larger state groups or anything like that. That's what I like.
that's right.
I'm marking things off on my list as we go along. You made a post that seriously caught my attention. It concerns the FBI, conspiracy theorists, and the Patriot Act.
Yes.
What the hell's going on with that?
So back in May, the FBI actually issued a memo to law enforcement where they said that conspiracy theorists are another form of domestic terrorism. Okay. The Patriot Act allows any organization, if you're deemed a terrorist or a potential terrorist, you basically lose your rights immediately as soon as the Patriot Act is initiated. So what that means is it gives them a right to wiretap your phone without a warrant. It gives them a right to, that search and seizure doesn't exist anymore. They can arrest you for, like Guantanamo Bay is a prime example. There are terrorists that are being held in Guantanamo Bay. You don't have it under normal circumstances. You can only be held. I think it's either 24 or 48 hours. You can only be held without being charged by a crime. Okay. If the Patriot Act is initiated and your charges or you're a suspected terrorist, they can hold you indefinitely without charging you for a crime. Okay. So if the FBI is saying that conspiracy theorists are a form of domestic terrorism, then what they're saying is basically if I'm posting conspiracy theory stuff on my Facebook page and they say, hey, Alan Davis is a domestic terrorist, they can come kick in my front door, arrest me without a warrant, take me away to somewhere, and possibly hold me forever without anyone ever seeing me again.
So they could, in theory, they could turn around and disappear you for something that you posted on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to back up just for a second because Bill Tarling made an excellent point in the YouTube chat. We were talking about the nonprofits. Said they can also rotate the finances around as grants and donations to each other back and forth.
And he's exactly right. And actually, Bill, if I ever do get these financial records, you're going to be one of the first people I send them to. Uh, he's really good at looking at those things, and that's one of the things that I was going to, want to look for is send a grant to Tobacco Free Kids. Well, then go to Tobacco Free Kids 990s, which we already have, and look for where that grant is listed that they received it. You see what I'm saying? And then look for the same dollar amount and see where Tobacco Free Kids sent it to. If they send it to Truth Initiative, then go over to Truth Initiative's 990s and do the exact same thing. And eventually, you might be able to track down where it actually went. Maybe not. Maybe it was all just a waste of time. Maybe it wasn't even worth for them to do. But at the end of the day, I harassed the living hell out of them for a week straight, and people in Twitter land, could see that. One of my posts, I've got 107 followers or 120 followers on Twitter. One of my posts that was posted on Sunday has 4,000 views. So 4,000 people in Twitter seen me harassing parents against vaping e-cigarettes to be more transparent. And 4,000 people seen that they did not respond to that.
And that's the beginning of a wake-up call for some people.
Yeah.
You were polite. You said, hey, and they went, and you were polite, and you said, hey, I asked, and they went, and you're polite, and all you're getting is this from those groups.
And my last one was, hey, just so you know, I'm not asking anymore. I'm now demanding.
See, and again, it's, as a consumer, you are going about this in a very different tactic, in a very different way, to be able to find pieces of information that people need to know.
And they can't turn around and say, oh, this guy's just making money off the industry. He's working for big. No, you can't. No.
Yep. He hasn't picked a penny up for any industry. And this is going to take us right, I know, way past our hour. And instead of any kind of a sponsorship role for the people that are watching, this evening's show is brought to you by ADV Liquid. ADV Liquid. My God, I don't think I could slaughter that anymore. And also the Juno. And I appreciate their being sponsors for the show. Here's the thing. We were talking about you digging out information. One of the biggest things I think that people looked at that you found was the MSA money payments that were going to San Francisco.
Yeah, that was a lot. So
this is going to tell people a few things. I try to keep my kids educated, but if they're not asking questions, I'm not going to bomb them with a ton of information simply because if they're not asking, they're not really interested or they don't want to know. But this one, I broached, again, the subject with my middle daughter this evening. I turned around and I said, do you know what the MSA is? And she just looked at me and said, no. So there was this quick, very short, brief thing about what the Master Settlement Agreement is, what it does. And I told her last year, and this is round figures, Ohio is receiving like $338 million in the Master Settlement Agreement. And then, on top of that, due to just taxation and other things, Ohio will collect a sum total between taxes and MSA close to $1.2 billion for the year. And her mouth dropped. I said, now, try to get somebody to explain to you why the state of Ohio has now enacted a 10-cent per mil tax that's going to start in October. She goes, you're joking. A lot of foul language happened after that. I said, so your 60 mil bottle just went up $6 October 1st. A lot more foul language, and it was pretty bad because she was not truly aware. The other thing that pisses me off about that, wherever she is getting her vape supplies, didn't bother to educate her either.
Because they probably don't know themselves. That's the sad thing.
It absolutely pisses me off because people need to know. But I digress. So when San Francisco came along with all their bans and all their crap, you were able to find where the MSA money went first to the state of California, and it was a god awful amount of money for a year. It was like 1.2 billion or something. It was incredible. That's just MSA money. That's not even taxation money. But you ferreted out how much the city of San Francisco actually got of the MSA money.
I don't have that figure right in front of me. And it wasn't something I figured out. It's public knowledge if you know where to look for it at.
No. Ferret. That you went browsing and you dug for the information.
So California and New York are one of the only two. I think it's just two. There might be three, but I think it's just two states that actually divide their MSA money up between counties and cities. Most other states, it's the MSA money goes to just the state itself. And it's actually interesting. I don't know if you remember, but exactly 1 year ago, I was on your show discussing the master settlement agreement.
Yes, we did.
I had made a post because I was packing actually to go to Florida to visit Clezo's shop while we were on the phone. But anyway, I had made a post and I posted, master settlement money and showed losses, how much money he's losing. And I told everybody, I was like, look, if you live in one of these states that's losing, I was like, be prepared because you're getting ready to have some vaping battles on your hands. And I'd be damned if we haven't seen that. We've seen it in Colorado. We've seen it in California. We've seen it in New York. We've seen it in Ohio. We've seen it in Texas. We've seen it in a lot of places, where these battles were going to start taking place. And they're just going to continue. And people get wrapped up in the master settlement agreement. And it's a lot of money. It really is. But you also got to remember tobacco taxes. Tobacco taxes themselves are down. Millions of people are not smoking anymore.
Yep.
Okay. And it's hitting, states and cities and advocacy groups and everybody right in their pocketbook, and they're scared to death, and they got to figure out a way that they can get a control over this. And what better way to control than through fear? And that's exactly what's happening. When you watch the news articles, vaping's been around, since around 2007 or so. It's from 2007 up to 6 months ago. Have you really seen as many people who are having lung issues, collapsed lungs, this, that, and the third going on with them, because of vaping?
Mm-hmm.
No, you didn't. Now all of a sudden you do.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious what it is. If you can demonize it on one side, then Colorado just did it, as a matter of fact. Colorado, right in the middle of their hearing, they show up a screen, and they've got all these headlines. Vaping damages teens' lungs. Vaping causes Florida teen lung to collapse. Vaping did this. Vaping did that. Vaping did this.
And it's all fake news.
Exactly. Every bit of it's fake news. Every single bit of it is fake news. And again, going back to what I keep saying because it pisses me off, we're not doing anything about it.
It's
I'm sorry, Mike. I don't mean to get off on tyrants.
No, you're fine.
I do. Where is our national PR campaign? Why, as an industry, are we always playing fucking defense? Excuse my language. Why are we always playing defense? When are we going to start playing some offense? When are we going to start speaking up for ourselves? When are we going to start fighting for ourselves? Millions and millions of dollars are spent in this industry every year for advocacy programs. Where's the PR? I'm doing what I can do, but I'm one freaking person. And I'm getting shit on by advocates for doing it.
You get phone calls, threatening phone calls for the stuff that you're doing.
You won't believe some of the stuff that's happened over the years, And I'm like, 90% of the time, there's certain things that I've done, certain things I've said, I can actually understand catching some hell for. But the stuff that I catch the biggest hell for, I kind of step back and I look and I'm like, wait a minute, this is helping you out. Why are you giving me shit on this? You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? I don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
It is. We've hit on like two or three different topics that are trigger points, I think, for most everybody. As in, where is our state or a national campaign to combat the fake shit that's out there? That's a big one. Why are we not stepping up and countering some of the things that are happening? These are all the things that people sit in vape shops or online, or God knows the Legion has spoken about this stuff countless amounts of time. And I like that because they're presenting it. It reminds me much of what General George Patton said. If you want it to stick, give it to them loud and dirty. And
Exactly
I
right.
laugh every time I watch a Legion show because it is a no hold barred. And for the people that can't stomach foul language, don't even bother. You know, get a redacted transcript or something because you'll fall out of your chair sometimes. Um, but it is, and see, Tammy, you say 13.8 million people are now vaping, and that's an awesome number. I've heard that, and it's
Well, let's talk about that for a second because there
sure.
is some. So that's not a true number actually. That is Altria's estimate. Okay, and that's another thing that I was someone messaged me and said, basically that I was wrong. Altria, when they put out their earnings, their fourth quarter earnings report or third quarter earnings report, whatever it is, said that they estimate that there are somewhere around 13 million. Okay. Um, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I feel like that it's pretty close to that at this point. I mean, we were at 12 million something last year. It's a very good possibility that we've grown at least a million people in a year's time. So
And that's people need. These are the things that you don't hear when you're talking or you're listening to the news. They don't bother to tell you how many people, even an estimate. You're not going to fire up Fox News and hear anybody on Fox News say, well, 13.8 million people are now vaping, unless they say, out of the 13.8 million people that are now vaping, 45% are going to capture this kind of venereal disease because they had a mod in their hand, or something asinine. You won't hear how many people are vaping. You won't hear how many people. And for God's sakes, when was the last time any of us really heard any public service announcement saying, kids, don't smoke? When was the last time anybody heard one?
actually, now I'm so part of this whole thing that I've been doing on Twitter is I'm actively going out looking for these negative posts. And so I'm seeing, kids actually saying, "Hey, I'm going to go back to smoking," or "Hey," especially with these bad cartomizers. They're saying that they're not going to vape their weed anymore. They're going to go to actually, back to smoking the flower again. You know, um, it's a dangerous message that's being sent.
It, this is going to show my ignorance, and I apologize. I don't know squat about weed or THC or anything. So when you say that they're going back to smoking flower, it actually took me a couple of months to read some of this to understand. You know, is when I was a kid, yeah, there were the burnouts that would hang out, and they would either smoke cigarettes or smoke weed. Is it still really that much of a prevalent issue for minors and
Yeah,
marijuana?
uh, you know, actually even more so. With the legalization of marijuana across the nation, I think that it's gotten to a point to where now it's not that big of a deal anymore. Um, it's not considered to be taboo. It's and I think more and more kids are.
And that's the kind of thing that bothers me. Because the miners are putting THC and derivatives, or however you're going to call it, into pod material and vaping it. And again, that's what the news headline picks up. That they're vaping whatever. It brings me around to a point that I was talking with Representative Jason Osborne out of New Hampshire. Hell of a man, hell of a show. So informational, it wasn't even funny. But one of the things that caught my attention that he said, the people that are, and if I'm correct, and if I'm not, tell me, the people that are supporting a bill get to speak last. The people that are on opposition have to speak first. And what he said, when the people get up to support the T21, the flavor bans or whatever, they don't have to even say factual material. They can get up there and lie through their face and say, well, don't forget that there's popcorn lung and there's this, and name 80,000 venereal disease and claim that because of vaping. And two things have happened. One, there's nobody able to refute what they just said. And two, they don't have to be factual about what they said. Just like you said, all of those headlines that were on that board. And I saw the screenshot. That there's like 5 or 6 different headlines that are up there. What the hell's going on?
It reminds me on some leadership classes that I took years ago. And the guy was talking about a shit sandwich. Okay. And he was basically talking about when you counsel an employee, you got your bread, your white bread on one end, you got your shit in the middle, you got your white bread on the other end. Okay. Because the only thing that people really listen to is what is in the beginning and what was at the end. What in the middle is just fluffer. And so if what you're saying is true, that the people who are, for the bill are the last ones that get to speak, well, 9 out of 10 times, that's the last thing that's being remembered. So the last thing you're hearing, if you're a voting member, is popcorn lung. Then all that other stuff that was said beforehand,
No, and they don't care. The ants and Bill Tarling would be able to tell you just a ton of all of the crap that is out there in the news that is maligning. It's horrible. And now I've gotten off topic all the way around. You had turned around and you had dug up all of this information about the money that was going, the MSA money that was going to San Francisco. And they are still, at that point, they were still trying to pass the ban. They couldn't even clean human crap off the streets.
Yeah, that's right. So, they can't, apparently they can't afford to pay to have the human feces cleaned up. They've made it illegal they've made it not illegal. You can defecate in the street and not get in trouble anymore. It's basically what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, I was researching something. I just want to
It's okay.
Go back for one moment. You were asking about marijuana use.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the youth survey. This is from 2017. Just real quick, 35.6% of high school students admit to using marijuana at least one time in their life, which is down from 38% in 2000.
These are the things that get me. And again, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I didn't start to smoke until I was 19. I've never done any illicit drug. I've never tried marijuana, nothing. I'm your straight white nerd is what I came out of high school. And that's how I've been most of my life. 6 or 8 months ago, I had to stop and ask my son Alex what 420 meant. And he laughed at me. But again, it's because, and there's part of that I tell people that from time to time, because in that case, I represent middle America and what people don't know. You know, so I'm continuously educating myself so that I can turn around and tell my kids or talk with. My father-in-law's a good one. Mel come over to play cards. He and his wife, you know, my mother and father-in-law come over to play cards. And the first thing out of his mouth, "What did you hear was on Squawk Box this morning?" No, I didn't hear about it. What is it? And off he goes. And I learn from him because he's telling me what the news is telling him. And the only reason that he does it is because he wants to be able to see what the other side of that story is. But everybody's getting programmed by what they're seeing in the news. And like you said earlier, nobody's digging deeper to find out what the actual root cause would be. They heard, oh, vaping and their lung collapse, so that's bad. And that's all they're going to fucking remember for a long time.
That's right. And if you go through and read the comments, all you're getting is, you're getting some kid talking about, yeah, now I threw my Juul away because, it was making me cough, and, I hope my lung's not going to collapse, and stuff like that. And there's really no one on there who's preaching the truth of the gospel. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Do believe it or not, we're already past our hour. I want you to do me a couple of things, if you are so inclined.
Okay.
If somebody were asking where can they become further educated online, from your standpoint as a consumer, where would you tell them to look to start to dig into some of this information?
So, are you meaning
Joe Public comes walking up to you and goes, "Hey man, I hear you know where I can look some things up because I've got questions about vaping, or I've got questions about THR."
So the first thing would be join CASA. Okay. And, go to CASA's website. For a consumer, that's the basic, the majority of the people don't need to go as far as you and I do, but if you go to the CASA's website and, they have lots of good articles that really break down, like they were one of the first ones to post an article about debunking popcorn lung and so forth. That would probably be the best place for someone who just the average Joe off the street. Okay. If you're not the average Joe off the street and you are already a vapor and you do, want to get involved or whatever, send me a friend request, and I post things on my page because I want interaction, and I want people, if I post something that's wrong, I want people to tell me it's wrong. I want you to tell me why. And it's because we can have that conversation so you and I both can learn off of each other, but you're more than welcome to send me a friend request. I pretty much accept all the friend requests. So, we'll all work together to do what you need to do.
Who would you, let me ask it a different way. What kind of people or what makeup, characteristic-wise, who would you recommend to watch the Legion vaping show? Newbies, hardcore people, intermediates?
You really kind of put me on the spot, didn't you? I think everyone should see it. I think anyone who is curious about what's going on in the industry that no one else is telling you about, I think is where the Legion really comes into play. Because we talk about the things that either people are afraid to, or are afraid to hurt their friends' feelings, or whatever the case may be. We don't have friends, so we don't care whose feelings we hurt. But it's definitely for everyone. Yes, there's cursing, and yes, sometimes we get very, very rowdy about, because we're passionate. Okay, so I don't recommend. I've got one friend who great guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but him, his wife, and his daughter, every Saturday night when we have a Vaping Legion show, they turn it on their 50-inch TV in their bedroom, and they lay in bed and watch the Vaping Legion. Okay. Now his daughter's 17 years old. So she's not a little, but still, and she uses that information, at school with kids who are vaping. That it's not good. You don't need to be vaping. And this is the reason why. So, our show is it's different. it's not going to be anything you've ever seen before. And I think that's why it's important, and I think that's why we need that space, you know, because we are going to do the things, and we are going to say the things that people don't want to talk about, or they don't feel comfortable talking about. You know, we get sometimes we do get people who message us after the show, and they're like, "Thank you for saying that. I've been wanting to say it, but I didn't know how to say it." You know?
Mm-hmm.
So we provide a voice for the consumers that haven't had a voice. You know what I mean? It's like the labels. You know, for the past 3 years, we've been on this thing about labels, and people were saying, "Oh, nobody cares about labels. Nobody cares about this." Well, what's being held up at city council meetings? You know, it's
Yeah.
not a bottle of Two Stones.
Nope.
No, because you have a clean label. They need it to be as flashy and as child appealing as absolutely possible. You know, they can stand here honestly. They'll stand at the daggone at the committee meeting and say, "See how Jewel is advertising to our kids." You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they malign everything. All right, before I finish out for the night, if two things. How do you like that? Is it vaping well, and is it leaking your billet box?
No, it hasn't leaked at all. Um, no, not a single leak. They've done it all day today. It gave me a whole day's battery on one battery. I'm using a Kanger coil with a point 0.5 with 12 milligram e-liquid, and this is the only thing I've vaped today. Normally, I've got one of these or another little pod type device, and then a Mad Modder 200, 250.
Mm.
And so I'll use this when I'm in my office by myself, and I'll take my other one when I want to walk outside. But this is all I've vaped today at all. I haven't touched anything else. So
I was just curious because I saw that you requested, who's got a billet box that,
yeah.
and some people had responded and say, get ready for leaks, and I was just curious about that.
So I'm not saying. One thing that I've learned in my inquest was there's this little seal in here that does need to be replaced from time to time. So it's got a little seal right here.
Right.
So I guess if it does leak, maybe that seal needs to be replaced. But I've had this is probably the third tank full today, and I haven't had any leaking. A little bit of condensation up here at the top, just where it's coming out of the drip tip, but nothing major.
Nice.
I've had other tanks that leak a lot worse.
That's cool. All right. In closing, if you could tell anybody anything that's on your mind, what would you tell them?
Please do something. Please. Listen, get your ass on Twitter and start fighting, against these negative, these lies. Okay. Listen, I don't even go out and target, stories that have the potential of having some truth. Okay. Right now, there's so many absolute full false news stories. That's all I'm concerned with at this present moment. Okay. But if I could get 1,000 people to comment on those threads, we might get some change. We might see people starting to maybe see, that there is some false in the news article and some truth in the fact that vaping saved your life. Okay. Just go out there and do it. If you see a news article that's being posted that says, I don't know, vaping causes popcorn lung, then just comment under there. There hasn't been one instance of popcorn lung at all, ever.
Nope.
You're probably not going to change the OP's, the original poster's opinion, but what about the 5,000 other people who might see that comment?
And that's what I keep telling people. Even if you only change the mind of 1 or 5 people, this is just like the old shampoo commercial. You tell your friends, and they tell 2 people, and they tell 2 people, and so on and so on. Gaining traction anywhere that we can, at any point that we can. Educate. as much as we can. Alan, I seriously appreciate you being on the show tonight.
Thanks for
Dude,
having me.
it's been awesome, and we're going to do it again before too long.
Okay.
Because there are some things that I'm going to start keeping more of a running content on as we go along.
Hopefully, you didn't lose too many followers for having me on tonight.
It's one of those things, you know. I'm not here to be Mr. anything. I've got questions. I ask people questions, and maybe somebody. It might change one person's mind, and if I can do that, I've done something good for the day. You know, other than them not making my wife angry and getting whooped. If I can manage those, I'm doing good for the day. No, she didn't. All right, folks. This evening you have been listening to Mr. Alan Davis talking about a wide range of things. And if you want, follow him on Facebook, check him out on Twitter. Catch up on what's going on. Take a look at some of the things that he's been able to expose. And as your freedom of information things come along, I'm really curious to see where that's going to take you, because that's going to be a rabbit hole that probably the size of Texas, from what I'm looking at.
The missing puzzle piece that I needed.
All the puzzle pieces are all right there. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us on both Facebook and YouTube. Maybe we can do this again before too long again. But anybody, thanks for joining us this evening. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And we'll catch you again next week.